he made different silver coins for paying the different legions. Instead of just one centrally issued generic coin, this one is actually specific to Legion number 2.
All right, so I'm here with Bill. How's it going, Bill?
Good. How's it going with you?
Going good. And we have another episode of Bill's Picks, and you've curated some coins for us to look at. What do we got going on here?
That's right. Yeah, I saved 5 coins that I think tell interesting stories, and then also an item that's numismatically related.
So let's start with this guy. I mean, what are these even for?
So these are called Popo Manillas, this particular type is. They were basically copper or bronze trade items used in West Africa, beginning in the 1500s with the Portuguese, and then later as the French and British moved into the area as well, and also, of course, used among the natives. Copper was called the red gold of West Africa, and people would trade for it, whether that was dowries or for funeral rites or just market transactions, things like that. And the wives would wear larger versions of these. These are later from the 1800s, where these are just meant as a commodity money. They're not really meant to be worn by anyone, but they resemble the traditional ones that would have been stacked up on wrists or ankles or something as a status symbol. They were used as a commodity money. One of the significances is the West African slave trade, which makes them an interesting historical item from that perspective. And that's one of the associations, one of the reasons why the British tried to phase it out as they had control of West Africa and convert people over to coins.
So these weren't worn by people. These were just representing something that was worn by a person, and they were used for commerce, basically.
These particular ones, this type that is called the Popo Manila, was more of a representative currency, but traditionally there were larger ones that people did wear.
That's crazy. And they're made out of copper, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
So different European manufacturers would actually make these to go trade in West Africa.
And are these for sale? I mean, is this something?
Yeah, those are for sale.
How much do they go for?
These would sell for $60 a piece.
Wow, $60. Okay, for a little bit of world money there. Let's go through the coins. So you mentioned you have 5 coins. Which one would you like to start with?
Let's just start with, I have a denier from St. Louis the Ninth of France, or King Louis the Ninth. He's the only French monarch that has been canonized by the Catholic Church. This particular piece, it's a very traditional, standard medieval design with the cross on one side and the castle on the other. This is a very common motif in French medieval coinage. He's well known for participating in both the 7th and the 8th Crusades. In the 7th Crusade, he was captured and had to be ransomed. In the 8th Crusade, he actually died in North Africa.
So medieval silver coin.
It's a medieval hammered coin for a pretty well-known king. It's actually quite affordable. At $50, it's not really the scarcest French medieval piece.
Yeah, all right, that's very cool. And what's this one here?
And this is a Dutch token, or jeton as it's called, from the 1500s. And what's interesting about this one is that it's commemorating the defeat of the Spanish Armada by the British, by Elizabeth. And so she's pictured there riding on a chariot, holding this book, presumably the scriptures, because the whole nature of that battle is that the Spanish are coming to take an army from the Spanish Netherlands to invade England and stop them from being Protestant. They're defeated, and then here on the reverse, some birds in a nest fighting off a bird of prey that's trying to take their eggs. And so it's symbolically the British protecting their homeland there. And so these were used in counting houses, sort of like a visual abacus, like they would mint them to represent current events and important ideas of the time. And the Dutch, of course, were revolting as well against the Spanish rule.
So when you say she's holding the scriptures, you mean like a Bible?
Yeah.
And what Bible would it have been? Because 1589 is before King James. Is it like Geneva or Bishops or something?
It would have been the Bishop's Bible.
Bishop's Bible?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Whether or not the Dutch knew that, I have no idea.
Yeah, that is still a cool piece. What about these ones over here?
This is a coin of Antonius Pius, the successor to Hadrian. He's considered one of the 5 good emperors. But this is not a Roman imperial piece. This is actually a provincial piece. And it's from Laodicea ad Mar, which is, of course, the same Laodicea in Syria of the book of Revelation. And so here you have several decades after when we assume Revelation was written, you have Tyche, the Greco-Roman goddess of cities and so forth, and the fates appearing on this coin. So when Revelation says that the Laodiceans are lukewarm, well, they did fail to change the culture of the city, at least in those few decades.
Right. This is a very old coin. I mean, 138 to 161 AD, but it does seem to be in fairly good condition.
That sort of dusty look.
Yeah.
They call that a desert patina or a sand patina. A lot of coins from dry desert Roman provinces have that look.
It was buried or something.
It was buried but not corroded because it's not as wet there.
Yeah, and the air couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
All right, what about this Tiberius coin?
Now this is another biblically associated coin. The so-called tribute penny is, of course, a very famous coin in the Bible. You know, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and so forth. And so these Tiberius coins from that time period that are original sell for many hundreds, many thousands of dollars. Now, the reason this one is only $100 is not because it's inauthentic, but because collectors do not like oftentimes this type, which is called a foray. And what would happen is that the minter, whether by the government's permission or without the government's permission, would sometimes make these sort of hollow coins where there's a sort of a shell of silver and it was filled in with just whatever, either air or base metal. And so it's not as appealing aesthetically as a full silver coin. And so for that reason, they do sell for less, but it is an original piece that was made basically so that they could save money and pocket the difference.
So that was on purpose. It wasn't like an error.
Correct, yeah.
Literally filling it with the base metal.
Yeah, and so it has, of course, the reference in Matthew 22. This particular example was made basically as a fraudulent piece by the minter. It's not that it wasn't officially made, it's that they were pocketing the difference.
Yeah, so they were stealing.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a great irony that it's a coin related to a passage about paying your taxes, and the government itself is cheating the people.
Right, no doubt. What about this last one here in the middle?
Well, this is the most interesting, and so we've saved this one for last. This is a coin of Marcus Antonius, who we call today Mark Antony, probably because of Shakespeare. It's a legionary coin. Now, without going through the whole history of Caesar, Octavian, Mark Antony, Cleopatra, all that stuff, which is an amazing history with many turns and twists, all throughout the Mediterranean world. And there's this Roman Civil War, of course, at the end of the day between Octavian and Mark Antony. And Mark Antony takes his legions and goes and tries to assault Rome. He gets pinned up, ends up going back to Egypt and committing suicide, and he loses the whole game. But he made different silver coins for paying the different legions. Instead of just one centrally issued generic coin, this one is actually specific to Legion number 2.
No way.
Yeah.
So how do we know it's
If you
for the
zoom in
second
right,
one?
well, if you zoom in right there, it says Legion number 2.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so it has the galley on the front. Famously at one point he was tricked into sending part of his navy to Octavian in exchange for legions, and he sent the ships, but the legions never came. There's many interesting things about this, but it's about 32 BC that was minted, and so it's actually tied to a specific Roman legion and that Roman Civil War between Mark Antony and Octavian.
Yeah, this is a really interesting coin. I think probably a lot of people know Mark Antony from Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, Mark Antony and Cleopatra is first performed in 1607, and that's in our popular culture, in English-speaking world, that's where a lot of us get our exposure to that storyline. As he dies in Cleopatra's arms, drinking his last cup of wine, he says, "This miserable change now at my end, lament nor sorrow at, but please your thoughts, in feeding them with those my former fortunes, wherein I lived, the greatest prince of the world."
Beautiful. It's a beautiful story for a beautiful coin.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, these are some great picks, Bill. I really enjoyed learning about them, and as always, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as always.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.